Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Mikkel Thorpe, and this is the Expat Money Show. Today's guest is a lifelong entrepreneur with a focus on building freedom in all its dimensions. He is an avid traveler with his family of five, has businesses on 3 continents, and his family has given birth in 3 different countries. His core belief is that the problems of tomorrow are solved by entrepreneurs today. I happen to agree with him. In this episode, we will be discussing his next venture, which is a joint venture with me and a previous podcast guest, Xenia Schneider. Please welcome to the show my very, very good friend, Mike Chu. Mike, how are you?
I am delighted to be here and super excited to dig into what we're both passionate about.
Very much so, very much so. Let's take a minute before we kind of go into the new venture, which is super duper exciting. Why don't you kind of walk us through your backstory? How did you get interested in all these types of things? Maybe we can even tell a little story about how we met as well.
Sure. Happy to dig into all that, but I'd say I definitely did not start out doing what I'm doing now. And in fact, I went through your traditional Canadian school, grew up in a small town, didn't really want to travel, didn't care for travel, didn't care about freedom at all in the beginning. But I've since done a full 360 or 180, however you look at it. And now I'm really empowered myself to get people to think about their freedom on many, many different dimensions. Because this is one of the mistakes that I made in the past is just like, oh, I'm thinking everything's good, but not thinking beyond my immediate future, which is everything is good, decent job. What else could happen? What bad things could happen? And so that's, what got me thinking along those lines. Just like the first country that I went outside, I realized like there are, what are we at now? 200 countries in the world, 197.
More or less.
Yeah, more or less. And that's at least 40 different ways to look at life, to live life, perspective. So the chances of my perspective being the best one or the most optimal one is pretty low. So then my ears kind of opened up proverbially and just started taking everything in and meeting with interesting people, smart people. I realized I just didn't have the ideas or the like perspective, how to think beyond my immediate future. So that's kind of my kind of kick in the butt, if you will, to get things going. And now I think about freedom on all dimensions. So where you are, where your assets, what do you want to do with your life, with who, and just in general, where's the world going and how to pick the best place for yourself. So pretty excited to dig into any of those topics because I know we share a lot of perspectives on establishing freedom. And this latest venture too, it's just this one aspect that a lot of people don't realize that you can pass freedom down to your next generation, which when I first heard this blew my mind. It's, we're all absorbed, like, let me achieve this, let me do this. What about the next generation? How can I pass it down?
Well, I think it's super interesting because most people are thinking about themselves, like you just mentioned. They're not thinking about the next generation or all future generations. I am very forward thinking with a lot of these types of things. So both of our wives are from mainland China, and I really wanted my kids to learn and speak Mandarin growing up. And my kids do. I have 3 children, and they're both native level, they're all native level in Mandarin. And I was very purposeful about those types of things. Most people don't think like that. They don't think, okay, what can I do today, which is going to set up my family for massive success? And you and I came to very similar realizations about this with not just like, what are you going to teach your kids, or where are they going to go to school or things like this, but the actual location on where they're born can set up their entire life for success. So I will let you do the big reveal, I guess, but why don't you share with everyone what we're working on?
Sure. So the big reveal, the mission really, it's how to pass your freedom down to the next generation and do something that once the time has passed, you don't get a do-over. There's no second chances for a first birth. And that's what we're really thinking about is where do we give birth to our child so that they have even more freedom than myself? And this whole big venture is we want to empower the people out there to plan boldly after they hear this idea of giving birth abroad. Like it's scary, we understand. So the whole venture is to empower the parents out there to actually plan, do what makes sense, and have help with the details and every step along the way so they can do that, they can execute that plan. So long story short, the company is called My Birth Abroad, and that's what we're doing. Very straightforward.
So it's been very interesting. In the intro, I mentioned that you have three children, all born in three different countries. I have three children, all born in three different countries. And we've been very purposeful about this. So we both have a Brazilian child. We both have a Chilean child. And we've kind of gone through this, your family and my family, at roughly the same time over the last several years. And we know each other because we worked together in the very beginning. We started working together in a client consulting type of relationship, and then we became friends, and our families became friends, and now we are doing this venture together. And I think it's really, really exciting. And we've got another partner who is joining the team. The three of us together are putting together the company, and as you mentioned, it's called My Birth Abroad. And the idea is really to be helping families to move to another country for a limited amount of time, but be able to have and the benefits of that move is going to give the child advantages throughout the rest of their life. And I just think that that is so, so amazing. So I'm happy to talk a little bit about maybe the reasons why or why we have come to this conclusion on these types of advantages for the kids. And then I want to get into with you a little bit of details about the different countries and why we chose Brazil and Chile and, other places in the world that we're going to be working in.
Of course, and it always starts with why. And when we initially did this review, or even back in the day when I told my parents about this, the kind of looks and the questions that we would get is, you can imagine, that sounds crazy. Why would you fly to a place that you don't even speak the language, give birth there? And it really comes down to this: like, do you really want to set up your kids for success? I think almost every parent is going to say, 110%, they're going to say, yes, absolutely. And so the next question becomes, do you want to do a little bit of work, 3 months, more if you like it, 3 months, and set them up for a whole entire lifetime, but also every generation after them?
That's the key. Let's pause for 1 second there. That's the piece that I think all families, or call it 99% of the families, miss. As you said, all parents want to set their kids up for success. All parents love their kids. We get that. But most parents are not thinking about all future generations. They're not thinking about future grandkids, great grandkids, great 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 grandkids. They're not thinking that far ahead. But I think it's so, so important and so interesting to do an example like that or do an exercise like that and try to think 100 years in the future or a couple hundred years in the future and decisions that we can make today for our family, which are going to have things that move you forwards throughout all of this.
Exactly. And I since I can't predict the future with 100% certainty, let me just create options. And so if I create these options, my child would have the optionality of keeping the same citizenship wherever they're born and pass it all the way down to their child. And again, it comes to options. If one of the countries I choose today, in 200 years, they become not a great place to be a citizen of, they don't have to pass it down to their child. They can pick another one. And it's really this optionality in the face of volatility. As we're talking about like, tariffs, what's going on, all that. In the face of volatility, options are the answer.
100%. I have always looked at things that it's like, okay, I try to make decisions with the information I have on hand, and I try to make the best decisions possible with that information. But in the reality, you have no idea what's going to happen in the future. You're just constantly trying to move forward one step at a time. You're guessing. But I never want to assume that I have the right answer. And if I don't make that assumption that I have the right answer, then what I need is options. I need to have multiple different things. So as you keep coming to a crossroads, you can make a different type of choice. But if you have no options, you really have only one choice. So I think that's why having multiple citizenships, and for our kids having multiple citizenships and having that being able to be passed on to all future generations is still extremely applicable and extremely valuable. You hear all these comments of, well, in the future, they won't even have passports and they won't even have this and all these kinds of things. Fine. But I still think that there are so many things that go into this with cultural ties and We might not have the same physical type of passport we have here, but I think the nation state is still going to be around for the foreseeable future. And the more options we have and be able to be on both sides of the walls as these are being put up, um, that leaves things open to you guys that if you try to just make a bet on what is going to be the best one, I think this is going to be working out a lot better.
And exactly. The other aspect is we know having options, extra citizenships, residencies today will benefit you. And we don't know what the future is. So if you're a parent listening to this, it's like, do you really want something that might happen in the future to stop you from taking advantage of something that is going to give you a benefit today? So it's, you know, you got to weigh the options. And so the whole coming back to the whole story is like we do want to empower parents that are open-minded and they're thinking about the next generation and the next generation and the whole entire family tree so they can plan and achieve these options without being bogged down by the logistics, right? Because I think we both admit giving birth in a place that you don't really know can be challenging. It's a bit scary. So that's why we started this.
It is a huge adventure at the same time. I mean, it's so easy to look at the uncomfortableness of the situation, but I always try to like flip it on its head and be like, this is a big adventure and we get to do something interesting with our spouses. And by the way, both of our spouses are such so courageous and so brave. And, you know,
Yes.
the way that they look at this and kind of have such a good attitude towards it really impresses me about both of our spouses. The interesting thing, to go back to the point on the next generation, I just got back yesterday, 2 days ago, from speaking at a conference in the United States, and the theme of the conference was dynasty. And I was speaking about starting a family office and writing our family constitution, and I was giving examples from my family on how we've set ourselves up to be influential and wealthy for not just my generation or my kids' generation, but 100 years, 500 years, etc. And the work that we're going to be doing or have just started doing together on mybirthabroad.com is a very important piece of that. The family constitution that we drafted for my family, for the Thorpe family, really pulls on value systems from Latin America, from Asia, from China, from Western society, from Christianity, from all of these types of different value systems and philosophical ideas. And to go even further back in our conversation, when you talk about, you know, close to 200 countries in the world and different perspective, and what are the chances of us knowing the exact right thing? The way that I've always looked at it is that there is so many different ways to see the world, and everybody thinks that they're doing it the best possible. You know, they've had their own historical ways of going through it. I don't think there's one culture that looks at history and goes, oh, you know, we purposefully chose all the wrong moves, and you know, we're happy with that. You know, like countries all think that they're making the right choices and there's reasons for doing those. Being a traveler and exploring the world and visiting to more than 100 countries, I've been able to cherry pick what I have seen works really, really well with different societies and different cultures. And then anytime you're able to strengthen your relationship with those cultures, adds a more meaningful experience. So on that note, let's get into a little bit about Brazil, where you are and where our children have been born, and one of my favorite countries in the world. Um, how have you seen having a child in Brazil affected your relationship with Brazilians or people who have an affinity for Brazil?
Boy, there's a lot to unpack there. And I'll just start by saying that if I had not chosen to give birth to my second child here in Brazil, I would not have known Brazil. Ultimately, I moved here and I live here pretty much 100% of the year. And had I not taken that choice, this wouldn't have been an option for me. And so that just goes to show if you keep your mind open, you don't know where your life is going to be, but sometimes you're pleasantly surprised by where you end up. With Brazil, not that I've been here for, I want to say coming up on a year and a half, it's been absolutely phenomenal. And transparently for the whole audience, our original reason for coming here and giving birth was really focused around how can I set my kids up for success. I wasn't expecting a lot in Brazil, but the longer that we stayed, the longer we can see ourselves living here, And now we made that happen because out of all the different categories of what we think is important for our life, Brazil checks pretty much everything. It's easier for me to count on one hand the things that Brazil isn't as good as US, where we were living before, and the rest are just all benefits, right? I never want to paint the picture that any country is perfect because no country is. So you want to weigh your options. And for us, it's actually kind of a no brainer. Looking at how, people say Latin American countries are very family oriented, very friendly. I think Brazil takes it up to another level. You can have a conversation with a stranger on the street, and then in that 20 minutes, you get invited over for some barbecue. You talk about kids, and then you just have regular play dates between your kids. And you look at the environment and the culture here of how people look at kids. Where else would I want my kids to grow up other than this environment? So that it made it really easy for us.
I find that Brazil has to be probably, I'd say it's probably the most warm culture out of any that I've seen in the world. Like I'm legit thinking if there is a more friendly, outgoing, I don't I can't think of any. I would probably put Brazil as the most friendly place in the world. What do you think?
I think so as well. I haven't been to 100 countries. I probably hit up 30, something like that. And I can't even find another one. But I'll say, like, even if you don't believe me, where we are is Florianopolis, and it's an island with 42 named beaches, sunshine, and there's a lot of nature for you to explore. It's hard being depressed and angry all the time in this nice weather and being so close to the beach. So I would invite anybody considering, Brazil, visit first, see what you think about it, check it out, and don't take our word for it. Check it out for yourself. And if it's the right place, you might end up falling in love.
Brazil's an interesting one because there was a movie that came out in the 90s. I'm sure it was the 90s called City of God. And I remember watching that, and it was about the favelas in, I think it was in Rio, and it just gave Brazil a very bad look. And I think that so many people from our generation watch that movie, and that's all that they see of Brazil. And actually, Brazil is a huge country with so much going on and so many different enclaves. And you mentioned Florianopolis, a place where I've spent a lot of time, which has to be one of the most beautiful places on planet Earth. I swear the water just sparkles there. Like you can be downtown and looking out at the ocean, and the water is just made of diamonds. It's just unbelievable. And you can walk one of those beaches, even in the middle of winter where it's like 10 degrees Celsius or something, and it's cool outside, and you've got a winter jacket on, and you're walking down the beach, and it's just so gorgeous. And I remember going for walks there with my wife after our child was born, our second child was born, and I don't think there was many times in my life that I was as happy as I was right then and there. I mean, it was just unbelievable. We had such a good group of friends there, people who I still speak to, and even people who ended up joining the Expat Money team. I still are now working with me years later. But there are some really, really, really special places in Brazil.
100%. And now that I've been here, even just a year and a half, you kind of have different choices of beaches too. Um, Maybe the audience will label me as a beach snob, but I have favorites for when I want a calm beach, or when my kids want to just dig sand, or when I want to hit the waves for some surfing lessons. And you actually get a choice. And but coming back on topic though, for parents considering Brazil, like yes, the lifestyle is great. Yes, the people is great. Yes, the food is phenomenal, especially if you like barbecue. All that is great, but what does it do for your child and your family? Being such a family oriented place, if your child is born here, they are 100% Brazilian citizens, and the parents immediately qualify for permanent residence. And that gets you a gateway into Latin America, but living in Brazil for as long as you want. And for medical, on the medical side, a lot of people are concerned coming to these countries that we help people in is what's that level of healthcare? And what I can tell you, and as Mikkel will for sure be able to tell you as well, we're not trying to find the cheapest hospital with the cheapest doctor to get this thing done at the cheapest price. That's never going to be the case. I would not put my wife through that. And I think any man This gets a little bit political, but my this is just my opinion, so I guess you can hate me for it. But I think any man would not want to put their wife through labor with the cheapest price and the roughest conditions.
I don't know how that's political. I think that's a pretty blanket statement. I mean, I don't, I wouldn't worry about offending anyone with a statement like that.
With the way that the world is. But yes, I would never want to put my wife through that. And here in Brazil, you can go everything private. The doctors are Western trained. They speak English. And in fact, we have a Rolodex of people that help us and our clients. I'm actually, in fact, neighbors and good friends with the doctor that helped deliver my second daughter.
And my first boy, he delivered my first boy as well.
Ah, see, there we go. And we didn't deliver them in shacks. We delivered them in a proper private hospital with trained nurses, and the doctor, he showed up, before we did. I think it was the same for you. And and he's with my wife the whole entire time during labor. He didn't run out to take care of like six other women giving birth. None of this. It's all private.
The doctor met us in the parking lot, carried the bags inside. We didn't even register for the hospital. We went upstairs. She gave birth. And then after the baby was born, then I went downstairs later on and registered and everything like that. And he was with us the whole time, whether it was going to be an hour or 24 hours, the doctor was going to be there with us the entire time. So, like, super dedicated.
Super dedicated, and even financially, I think for us it netted out to be less than what we would have done in the US, even with insurance. So that for anybody watching, like level of budget, you're getting significantly better care for much, much less. And
100%. I think even if you start taking in your accommodation and airfare and stuff like that, I think you're still going to come out at a comparable price and you get a vacation and you're getting the passport. On the note of the passport, the Brazilian passport has an extremely strong travel document, one that I think most people don't realize how strong it is. They seem to imagine that is a poor travel document. And in reality, it's actually very, very strong. It has visa-free access to the Schengen zone, to most places you would want to go in the world. You can travel on that Brazilian passport, and it's seen in a friendly way. It's not like has negative connotations to it like some citizenships out there. So if you were to go out there and purchase a comparable passport, you would probably be paying, I don't know, $500,000 to $1 million anywhere else to buy that passport. But with this, you go on vacation, you get to have a cool cultural experience and an adventure with your family, and the passport is quote unquote free, because of the legal system there. That, uh, by the way, everything we're describing is completely legal. There is nothing in the black zone or gray zone of this. This is all whitelisted. It's all at the constitutional level. We did all the research on these things. And it's not just anecdotally, like Mike, your family's been through it. Me and my family's been through it, and we're helping other families through it in Brazil as well.
exactly, the 100% success rate is something that our clients take to the bank. We never want to jeopardize and go into any legal gray zone. So all the countries that we help people in, it's 100% legal. It will 100% happen, and we can help with the entire procedure. Really, at the end of the day, it's the logistics and the legal paperwork that we want to offload from all of our clients. And coming back to Brazil for a minute, and I'm sure you've coached your clients through this too, it's when you look at passports, we also want to look at what does it open up for you. Especially if you're coming from a Western country, it's like, great, you have a really nice travel document, visa free to a lot of countries, but does that actually allow you to live and work in Latin America, in Europe? So with the Brazilian passport in general, what it opens up is the ability to live and work in any of the Mercosur countries in Latin America, plus the six Portuguese speaking countries, including Portugal. So if you look at your portfolio, can one of the passports allow you to achieve that? And I think there's very few outside of the Brazilian passport that allows you to achieve that, living in Europe and living in Latin America.
And on the Mercosur, Panama has just joined Mercosur as well. So that'll be interesting to see the dynamic between those countries as well. So it's leaving just the southern cone of South America, and it's now the Mercosur is growing. So it's like this little mini EU in Latin America that's getting traction. So it's pretty exciting too.
Yeah, and this is options. We don't know how Mercosur is going to grow, but I'm sure the countries want to expand and strive for more economic advantages. And now I get to live in, Panama. Once I acquire my Brazilian citizenship, I can essentially go be a resident in Panama now. That's an additional option I wasn't counting on. But hey, Panama is a really nice country. A lot of people want to go there, and I kind of just got it for free.
As well as Argentina and Chile. Well, on the note of Chile, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about both of our third children that were born. Both are Chilean citizens. What are the advantages to Chile? Why would someone choose Chile?
Chile is, I would say, the most developed nation in Latin America, in South America. If you go there, besides them speaking Spanish, you probably wouldn't tell the difference in certain areas. If you're in, Vancouver, Toronto, some of these developed cities, and what you are able to get there is once the child is born, yes, they're automatically a Chilean citizen, but as a parent, you are also entitled to go through a family reunion process and live there as well. In a very developed country, nature is absolutely beautiful as well. If you're a nature enthusiast, I'd say tropical weather, explore Brazil. But if you want alpine weather, desert weather, like all kinds of stuff, Chile. There's a lot to be explored in Chile. It's the longest country in the world, too. In terms of the travel document, though, if you want to open up North America, Europe, Latin America, this is what the visa free travel with a Chilean passport allows you to do. Visa free to Canada, US, one of the few, actually, now that I think about it, it's the only passport in Latin America outside Europe, any passport outside Europe that allows visa free to the US.
I think Japan does. I think maybe South Korea does, but pretty much all Latin America needs to have a visa for the United States and Canada. Caribbean, Africa, most Asia, most countries in the world require a visa to those two countries. Chile is the exception to that, which makes it one of the strongest travel documents on planet Earth, like top 10 travel documents on planet Earth, which is massive. So, for someone who wants to give their child the advantage of mobility, this is a really, really good option. So we have a ton of information about this at mybirthabroad.com, the brand new website. And it really goes into the visa-free travels and the passports and all of these types of things for Chile. It's pretty unbelievable, actually.
100%. And one of US is one of the toughest places to get visa-free access to. And so you can imagine what Chile economically is at to acquire that level of prestige with the US government. So that puts it into picture and kind of coming back on the higher level picture, you might be listening to all of this and there's this passport, that passport. Really, it's coming down to the decision of is this right for you? If the answer is yes, then you need to choose the one that best complements your passport portfolio right now. Sometimes you want to open up North America, whereas for North Americans, they really want to open up Europe or Latin America. So it does take a little bit of thought and planning. And that's why we want to put this service together. It's not just, we can certainly help you with the legal and paperwork and all that stuff, but it's much more than that. For some of our clients, they really just want to have a comprehensive plan and know how this ties together with their overall, financial life, taxation, and all that. And that's where Mikhail comes in to help with all of that. But don't look at it in isolation. If you're planning for the next few generations or forever, then also consider all the additional factors, taxation, where to live, and all
We're
that.
able to help you design the portfolio based on your family's exact needs. We have all the contacts with the hospitals, the doctors, the nurses, the medical facilities, the not just the doctors for giving birth, but the pediatricians, everything like that. We're able to help with the legal work, so immigration, preparing the documents, making sure you have all of the correct documents that you're bringing into the country, which ones need to be apostilled, which ones don't need to be apostilled, when you can show up, where you have to go, what offices, the timelines, everything like that. And then once you commit to all of this, where are you going to stay? What are the areas going to be? How are you going to get transport to the hospital? The hours, all the timing, everything like that. Like which areas you should be in, because these are big countries. Like Brazil's a huge country. I mean, there's safe areas and there's not safe areas. There's safe neighborhoods and not safe neighborhoods. So you have to be really granular about a lot of these types of things. And then we're even playing with the ideas of making sure that there's some type of a support group or friends or people that we can introduce you to so that you know people, even if you want to learn a little bit of the language, some language courses and stuff like that, that's available. So really mapping out the entire journey from start to finish. That's the value proposition with this. And as someone who's had to go through it alone, multiple times, my family, it's been very, very challenging, but I've been taking a lot of notes over the years and testing different things and talking to other families and helping my private clients go through this for a number of years now, for almost a decade, these types of things. Now, being able to put it all together and streamline the process for other families who want to get all the advantages but don't want to take the risks that we took figuring all these things out. And I would say there's probably no one else on planet Earth who knows more about this topic than you and I do. Someone else might go out there and research lots. That's wonderful. But our families have actually been through this and been through it in multiple, multiple countries. So it's a really cool adventure. It's very niche. I'm going to be the first one to admit it. This is not for everybody. If you're just looking for everything to stay the same in your life and you don't want to take any risks or be in an uncomfortable situation or in a country where you don't speak the language, this is probably not for you. But if you have a good attitude and you're looking for a way to connect closer with your spouse and set your family up for success, I think this is just such a cool option. And it's just so much fun too. I just think it's so much fun.
Yeah, and you nailed it right there. We don't forget about life outside of just giving birth and doing all these things. And so, if I think back, if I had to literally figure out everything from scratch, I think that would have made my adventure still fun, but a little less enjoyable. So don't forget about all the different logistics and the quirks and what you research online. Remember that those are opinions of one or two people, and your experience is going to differ. And what's written online isn't always the case in practice, especially and including cases where the official law says one thing, but you get on the ground and how it's actually done is way different. So you don't want to be caught by surprise by all those things when everything looks good on paper. You go on the ground and it's like, oh, your adventure turned into a bigger adventure.
Yeah, no kidding on that one. I've seen so much misinformation and so many mistakes online when I'm looking at it, and people are talking out of one side of their mouth, and they really have no idea what's going on. There's so many people who make comments on an armchair level. I'd be very cautious about taking advice from people who are just reading and regurgitating what other people write. I think that's the big difference, actually, as a quick side note, that from Expat Money to every other company in this space is that we're the originators of a lot of the ideas. We're the ones who are out there testing things. We don't put rose-colored glasses on everything when things don't work out. We're very transparent about it. I talk about all the failures and the mistakes and all the things, especially on our newsletter at expatmoney.com. There's we don't try to make things look perfect or better than they are. We try to give a very honest feedback of all of it. And so you and I can actually talk about our families giving birth in a foreign country and what it's like to go through immigration and how you handle the questions and how do you talk to the doctors and where to go and all of these types of things. Other companies out there are going to read our work and then try to run the thing through ChatGPT or something like that and make their own version of it. But it's just not authentic. I mean, our stuff is the originator with this. And I think it makes a big difference, especially with something so important. If you're going to trust your family and where you're giving birth, I mean, you need to work with someone who really knows what they're talking about.
It is a serious procedure. We make it fun, and come labor time, it is actually one of the more involved medical procedures that you can have. Right, you get everything that you can do. Childbirth is still one of the things that you have to be careful with around the world. You look at statistics, and this is one thing where reading something online is great. If you're doing your own due diligence, you're talking to those people, please make sure, for the audience that's listening, like, please make sure that that person has gone through that process themselves. Because it's one thing to hear something that sounds good and everything makes sense. And it's another thing when you meet with a founder that's doing it and has done it and has helped clients with, wouldn't even say like coming close to our 100% success rate, but at least have some success cases to show you. And that's one thing that we will not budge on, is we want everybody that we work with to have 100% success and a comfortable journey throughout the whole thing without risking anything on the medical side, personal safety side, legal side, or logistics side.
Exactly, 100%. Let's talk a little bit about the third country that we're working in, Mike, the country of Mexico.
Mexico is really, if you're a North American, this is like your backyard. Um, People go on vacation in Cancun. People go to various places in Mexico to see things, but there's so much more to Mexico when you give birth there and living there. There's a lot of expats. Recent years, I don't know the numbers exactly, but a whole bunch of Canadians, Americans, that are moving to Mexico, and it can't just be out of by chance. So if you do go to Mexico, give birth there, very similar concept. The child is 100% Mexican, and you, as the parent, will immediately be granted permanent citizenship. And you spend some time. There's a naturalization path for you as well. So actually, in fact, all of these countries, there's a naturalization path for you. Some faster, some slower. With Mexico, don't also forget about the North American access, right? For people that are considering Mexico and you're outside of North America, you can then get access to the North American markets. There's a NAFTA, there's TN visas, and all these things that once you're on the inside of North America, there's a lot of mobility and opportunity to live and work across the three countries, Canada, US, Mexico. So that's the main advantages for someone that, let's say, a European, that, and you have a good passport, the Mexican passport would complement that to give you access to North America.
One of the really cool things about Mexico for birth tourism is that not only do the parents become instant permanent residents, but the grandparents of the child, so your parents or your spouse's parents, can also become instant permanent residents. So it's not just about future generations, it's about the other generation, your previous generation, that you can positively impact. We're very family first. It's not just family as in our children, but it's also our parents too. So being able to include them in all of this, I think, is really, really exciting. I've been blessed to have my mother living with me for almost a decade while living overseas. My wife's parents spent 4 months a year with us as well. So there's a lot of opportunities for my parents, for my wife's parents, to participate too. So if you're very close with your parents as well, that this might be a very good option for you.
Especially if you're living in North America already. Mexico is a very short flight for most North American destinations. Whereas, of course, we understand, especially more Chile, if you're in the south of Chile, probably it's going to be hard for the grandparents to make the trip down there.
For sure. The options in Mexico are very interesting too, because Mexico, well, I guess Brazil also, these are very diverse landscapes. So there's places that we're going to be working in where you can give birth in the mountains or on the beach. Some people prefer, when having a pregnancy, to be in slightly cooler weather. My wife is one of them. She doesn't want to be in the tropics giving birth because it's very, very hot and she feels the temperature much more. So in Mexico, we're going to try to have multiple options for this. Right now, we are only working in the mountain area, but soon we will also be working in the beach areas. So by the time you guys are listening to that, we should have options. So if you guys get a hold of us at My Birth Abroad, just make an inquiry on the different locations that we're working in Mexico.
Perfect. And these countries we've chosen for to give you the widest net possible across your passport portfolio. And it also happens to be the countries that we have personal experience in. And that's how we can provide these services with 100% confidence that this is going to work. If you're in a special situation, or maybe your passport's a bit different, then that's when this extra tier of service is available to you, where through a consult, we can understand exactly how different your situation is and point you in the right direction. Because we know that this isn't for everyone. And if you're in one of these maybe 0.1% cases, then our network would be able to help you in that sense. So don't look at it as you want to make a decision, yes or no. Look at it as getting to know and tapping into a vast network of people that chances are they've gone through what you're going through now and the hurdles that you're facing, and perhaps, hopefully not, the judgment that you might be experiencing from others. And we're here just empower you to make the right decision.
Well, on that note, fully expect your friends and family to think that you are crazy if you bring up this idea with them. I certainly went through that. Everybody around us thought we were nuts when we started doing this stuff years and years ago. But actually, going through the process and now telling them the experience, a lot of them are actually really jealous that they had had the bravery to go through it themselves. And when we can clearly highlight all the benefits that it's going to give to not just ourselves or our kids, but to all future generations, because you're literally opening up a new pathway, a new option for all future generations of your family. I mean, it's just so powerful. I think people really wish that they had taken the time to explore these ideas, when it was their time to grow their family.
100%. And I'll just say the locals really enjoy it too. Because when we did it in Chile, how many kids look like? And by the way, I have a Chinese origin. My wife's Chinese. So how many Chileans actually are, cute, fat Asian baby? And the locals get really excited seeing that. Oh, this is a Chilean, but they look different, and you can kind of see the amazement in their eyes, and it's all a good laugh. They want to take pictures. Every nurse wants to take a picture with the baby. So be prepared to be a celebrity.
Sometimes people, especially, people from socialist type of mentalities will come and say, oh, you're taking advantage of the system or you're exploiting or something like that. It's the exact opposite. When we've given birth in these countries, first of all, as you mentioned before, we're paying for everything. We're paying for private doctors, private hospitals. We're not taking advantage of the society or making the society pay for us with their tax dollars. We're bringing non-tax dollars into the country. So this is FDI into the country we're bringing. So we're creating jobs, we're driving the economy, etc. That's number one. Number two is all the nurses, the doctors, the other families there. Everybody is so excited. They're like, you flew here to give birth because you wanted your child to be Chilean or Brazilian or Mexican, etc. I'm like, yes. And they're like so touched. They're like over the moon excited about this and just so happy because this is the biggest compliment they could ever get. Like, you're a Canadian and you wanted to be a Brazilian or you wanted your family to be a Chilean. It's like, that's a huge, huge thing. So instead of this being a negative, actually, it's a massive positive. People are so happy about it. So don't worry about being in an uncomfortable situation or what's someone going to say about it. They're going to be so curious and want to discuss the ideas with you and take pictures with you. And just they're going to tell all their friends about these crazy people who decided to fly in weeks before, months before the baby is born, because they really wanted to be part of our culture. And I think that goes to show the difference between, our community at Expat Money and some other communities is that we are showing respect to the local culture. First of all, we're paying our own way. As I said, we're learning about the history, about the food, about the culture, the languages. We're always trying to give back and show respect to these people. And it goes so far. Like, the response that we get through these types of things is amazing to watch.
I'll touch on this one last point about family dynamics as well, which is I think my wife and I are closer through all these experiences than had we not. First of all, it's just a lot more interesting things to talk about because our kids being, we're a family. We have 5 different passports for a family of five. So that's just already a fun topic for us to talk about. But through all of this, my wife and I, we realized that we we are running our own family, and the judgment that people pass, especially the ones that haven't even happened yet, and the judgment that we think people would make, but they end up not making those, it's really just irrelevant. So to us, it's keeping the mind open because we want to show our kids and teach our kids to keep their minds open. And at the end of the day, life's a one big adventure, anyways. So the more of these I can go on with my wife, I think it's just more fun that we can have together.
Well, on the point of bringing closer between you and your spouse, I've definitely noticed the same with me and my wife. Um, Going through a birth is not easy. Going through it in another country where you don't speak the language is a whole nother level. This We're here to support people and we can help you, but it's really interesting the dynamic shift between my wife and I when we went through this, because my wife really knows that she can count on me no matter what, and I know I can count on her because we don't have all, everybody in society and family and cousins and all these people around, so you have to rely on one another. And when you can show each other that you can be counted on, that you are trustworthy, it really solidifies that marriage. And um I can definitely say that we're much closer, my wife and I, than before these types of experiences.
I think you nailed it right there. I've been thinking about what it is about giving birth abroad and all these adventures that brought us together. It's actually about building trust between you and
100%.
your spouse.
So, Mike, we've talked a lot about the reasons for wanting to do birth tourism. We've talked about the advantages for the child, for ourselves, for our parents, but also for all future generations of our family, what that opens up. We talked about the three countries that we're working in right now. Why don't you give us a little bit of a glimpse into the future of future countries that we're going to be working in?
Sure. So a little bit of sneak peek. And depending on, I guess, when you're listening to this, maybe 3 years later, we should have launched these countries already. Right now on the docket list, we have Argentina and we have Panama. Both of these countries have additional advantages, different advantages, and there's a lot of details to go through, and hence we're still working out the different aspects of it. But look out to two new countries being added, and even more as we continue our journey and adventure exploring what's really out there for the world.
100%. And as our families grow, and the nice thing is that because this is a small company with me, you, and Xenia, we are able to work directly with families. So if there's something that's really specific that you really, really need, I encourage you guys to get a hold of us and discuss it. And then we can try to help navigate the whole process for you. So if you have questions or anything like that, or Argentina is really, really important to you, for whatever reason that might be, you want to have a little Mile baby with funny hair, then we can try to make that happen a little bit sooner rather than later.
And yes, because we are a small company, then that means please just give us a decent enough heads up. If you're giving birth next week, I'm sorry, but I don't think we can make that quick of a turnaround happen.
For sure. But reach out in advance. We're already working with some families who are in the process, like trying to get pregnant. So we're already working like beforehand. We're working with some families who are pregnant, who they're going to be going through the process now of delivery. So it's different stages. So even if you're, 2 years out before you think you're going to start your family or have an addition to your family, the right time to reach out to us would be now. And that way we can plan appropriately throughout the process.
And that's the key there. We don't want to rush things through the whole process and end up finding that you really needed this when, you don't want to get on the spot and we realize you forgot something from home that you really needed. So give
100%.
yourself some time and peace of mind. Give us the ability to plan and make sure everything's exactly how you want it to be in the foreign country. And it'll be a really fun adventure, I promise.
Amazing. Mike, super interesting conversation. And I'm so excited about our new venture together. Why don't we give the audience the website one more time? And if they want to get a hold of you, if they want to ask some questions about this work, where can we send them?
Sure, of course. The website is pretty simple. It is mybirthabroad.com, and there'll be various ways listed how to reach us. And these emails, they come to us directly. Like Mikkel said, there's no middle person. So just look on the website, there's a form, and reach out to us right there.
Yep. And I think we've got a special email address, which is hello@mybirthabroad.com. So you can reach out to us at that or on the website and go peruse and see the different programs and all of those types of things there. Mike, thank you very much for the conversation, and I will talk to you very soon. Thanks so much.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you.